Sorry for the late start, but hopefully we'll be able to get our entire share in this evening. This week's Parsha is Parshat Emor, and it has many outstanding features for us, as every Parsha does. But I think the dominant idea of this Parsha is the sanctity of time and space and man. If we look at the structure of Parshat Emor, we see, of course, that we have the sanctity of time. The Moadim are, the holidays are delineated for us with their times and their sanctity. Then there is the sanctity of space. That's embodied within the Mishkan itself. And of course, all of the ritual that went along with the Mishkan, the menorah, the Lechem HaPanim. And thirdly, we see the sanctification of man. So there are three basic kedushot here: time, space, and humans. So we're going to discuss this in light of an unusual passage that we have in the Torah itself. It begins with an incident, an unpleasant incident, more than unpleasant. It was a horrifying incident in that in Perek Kaf Daled, chapter 24, verse 10. This is the episode of the Mekalel, the one who cursed Hashem, used the name and cursed. It's also called the Megadef, again, to blaspheme. And so this is a Parsha which is in some ways mysterious. So we're going to try to illuminate it now. And by doing so, also understand its juxtaposition of the mitzvot of time and space and human beings. Because the truth is, mitzvot, when it comes to delineating mitzvot themselves, they can be placed anywhere. The mitzvah, this could easily have been placed, the mitzvah of the Lechem HaPanim, of the Shulchan, which is where the bread was set each Friday and removed, or the mitzvah of the lighting of the menorah does appear in other places, and it doesn't have to appear here either. It can be either before or after. But its juxtaposition here is what Chazal determined should be the basis of our understanding this sorrowful episode. So let's take a look at it now. Sefer Vayikra, Perek Kaf Daled, Pasuk Yud. After the mitzvah of the Shulchan, of the table, the holy table, and the mitzvah of the menorah, the Torah tells us, Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelit, a man who is the daughter of a Jewish woman, the son of a Jewish woman, V'hu ben Ish Mitzri, but his father was not Jewish. His father was a Mitzri, an Egyptian. B'toch b'nei Israel, Vayinatzu b'machaneh, and they actually struggled in the camp itself. Ben Yisraelit, the person who was born only from a Jewish mother, the Isha Yisraeli, and the other individual who came from another Shevet, but he was full Jewish heritage and lineage. Then the Torah says in Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayikov ben Aisha HaYisraelit, the person whose only his mother was Jewish, pronounced Hashem's divine name in a curse, et Hashem Vayikalel, and he cursed. Vayaviu oto el Moshe, and they brought him to Moshe Rabbeinu. And then the Torah tells us, V'shem imo, if you want to know the name of this person's mother, Shlomit bat Divri lamatei dan. She was Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, who was lamatei dan. His mother was from the tribe of Dan. So now we know his lineage. We know that he's a bit of a hothead. That's what we know about him. We also know that he did something which, from a Jewish standpoint, is certainly wrong. And that is, even when things don't go your way, for whatever reason, we're going to explore, you have to keep your cool. You don't curse. You don't engage in vile language. But this person did. So now he eventually is placed in a mishmar, in solitude, so to speak, and he's set aside till they find out what is to be done. There was no mitzvah that was given for a person nor a punishment for a person who curses with Hashem's name. We do have that if a person curses their parents, there is a prescribed punishment, but it's not specifically written about Hashem. Some Meforshim say that the reason is because Jews, this is Rav Naftali Hertz Wiesel, said, the idea of a Jew cursing God is so remote, so, shall we say, uncommon, that it didn't even merit the stating of the halacha itself. And so therefore the Torah waited until that very rare time when a person invoked Hashem's name in a curse and cursed Hashem, then Moshe Rabbeinu got the mitzvah of what to do. And in fact, he was killed. That's the basic story. Now we're going to see how Chazal analyze it. And we're going to start actually with Rashi, who has his normal procedure. He quotes the Medrash. Vayetze ben ish pasuk yud, vayetze ben isha Yisraelit. A person whose only his mother was Jewish. The Torah says vayetze, or vayetze. He went out. Went out from where? Now, Ibn Ezra says, you want to know from where? He went out from his tent. The Ramban says that doesn't sound right. Why would the Torah tell us where he left? And therefore, the Medrash that Rashi cites tells us where he departed from. To go out is one thing. To depart, to leave something is a bit different. I can go out of my house, but I don't depart from my house. There is no chasm between me and what was before me. But here it appears vayetze means that he left something. Mehechan yatsa, where did he go from? Rabbi Levi Omer me'olam moyatz. Rabbi Levi said this man himself actually left his own world. He lived among Jews. In fact, his mother was Jewish. And we know that there's a medrash that tells us that his father actually was involved in an affair with his mother, Shulamit bat Divri, because she engaged in conversations, perhaps in flirting, other types of activities, and indeed this Egyptian, his father, this man's father, slept with her, and this individual came about from it. Rabbi Brechia Omer, but Rabbi Brechia says, no, mi Parsha shlamala yatz. No, when it says he left, it means he rejected. He rejected the whole idea and made fun of the idea that each Friday, lechem bread was to be placed on the shulchan. Now, the shulchan was a 6-tiered double, sort of like a shelf, 6 shelves, one on top of the other, and they were pairs. So that made a total of 12. And the lechem apanim, each Erev Shabbos, the last week's bread was taken down and eaten by the Kohanim, and then a new set was put on. So he said, this megadef, this blasphemer, derech hamelech le'echol pat. God, pat chama, the king only eats fresh bread, warm bread, b'chol yom, every day. Can it possibly be that God, who's the creator of the world, would get 9-day-old bread? This particular argument is a cynical argument. In effect, it's not just the fact that it's 9-day-old bread, but it was an attempt to diminish in some way the authority and the mitzvah of the rituals of the Mishkan. And then a third view actually is, what did he do? Where did he go? Vayetze, he left. He claimed that my mother is from the tribe of Dan. And we know that the parshiot, or the parcels of land and the encampments were to be based upon each tribe. So he said, well, where do I go? I guess I'll go with my mother's tribe, Machane Dan. And this wasn't allowed. He wasn't to have any inheritance from Dan, nor any parcel of land from Dan, because it goes according to fathers. He became incensed. He went to court and they ruled against him. Then he came out, Vayetze, he went out and he took his case to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu said, the truth is, it doesn't go by the mother. You're not entitled to this inheritance. It goes by the father, and your father isn't Jewish. You're not entitled to any of those benefits of a Jewish father. Now, as you know, of course, some things we have goes according to the mother, it's maternal, and others it's paternal. But here it goes according to the mother. So he became very angry, and he first of all, Rashi also ties this in way back to when Moshe Rabbeinu first killed an Egyptian. As you recall, in the very opening of Sefer Shmot, Moshe Rabbeinu went out when he himself thought he was an Egyptian, or at least he felt he had a strong tie to being an Egyptian, even though he knew he was Jewish, and he saw this Egyptian man beating a Jewish man. So Rashi brings the Medrash, which says that he, unbeknownst to Moshe Rabbeinu, or perhaps even known to Moshe Rabbeinu, this person that he killed was the person who slept with Shlomit Bat Divri. And this person was beating the Jewish man that was Shlomit's husband. That's the Medrash. But the point is, though, that here he's not entitled to any of the benefits of being from that accrue from being the father's son. So he becomes upset, and then he curses with Hashem's name, and his judgment is that a person who curses and uses Hashem's name, that person that's a capital crime. The person is to be killed. And that's in fact what they did. He was executed. Now, one of the questions we have to ask is what is the source of this mitzvah itself, that one may not curse God? Even to say one may not. Listen, if you were this man's defense attorney, what argument could you give? Why? So when you think about it, Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik phrases it in a way that actually many people do. There are other Meforshim that do too, but he does it nicely in English. He says, do we feel hurt by the barking of a dog? Certainly not. Why then is the omniscient, meaning to say God who is all-knowing, eternal creator and sustainer of the universe, whose will is the source of all cosmic dynamics, why is he concerned with a nonsensical indignity uttered by a stupid, weak, transient being? In other words, no harm, no foul. God isn't harmed by this. And most of us, by the way, I think usually we have an expression, even in English, consider the source. If somebody's bothering you, instead of lashing out at the person, consider the source. Usually that person has his own set of problems, and that's why he engages in such behavior. But Rabbi Yoshe Ber Rabbi Soloveitchik offers one reason. And that is because when a person curses, he diminishes God, he diminishes God's name and God's reputation in the universe. And when he does that, he does two things. He diminishes, first of all, himself, this man. He doesn't diminish God at all. Not at all. God is not hurt by that. But he himself has caused irreparable harm to himself. And even more so, Rabbi Soloveitchik says that the entire world is B'Tselem Elokim. Not only are humans B'Tselem Elokim, but the entire world is B'Tselem Elokim. It is in the image of God. And when a person demeans God's name, even though God himself is not hurt by it, it is a diminution of the universe. And therefore, his crime is truly great. That's according to Rabbi Soloveitchik. The Sefer HaChinuch writes the following on this mitzvah, not to curse God. He says, the rationale for the mitzvah is that, he says himself, that a person does irreparable harm to himself. He diminishes not only his general being, but his soul. V'hinei hu nechshav kebehemot. He loses, in a very real sense, that which distinguishes him from animal life. What separates us from the animals? So the answer is actually the power of speech. When we say the power of speech, we're not only talking about the mechanical ability to formulate words and thus communicate. It is the idea of being able to communicate thoughts to another human being, to be able to transfer ideas from one person to another, from one generation to another. That, in fact, is the power of speech, the ability to conceptualize. And therefore, it is that power of speech which distinguishes us from all other of God's creations. Perhaps even the angels may use it, but they may use speech, but not in the way that we understand it. And so therefore, when a person so vilely does damage to this essential human element, it is a serious, serious crime, even a capital crime. Now, I'd like to take you to Tehillim, Perek Chet, the 8th chapter of the book of Psalms. And it's such a beautiful perek. They're all beautiful, of course, in their own way, but this one, to me, is just something which takes us beyond even our own considerations. David HaMelech is in the, he sets the stage. He's looking at the sky, and he sees the universe, which he considers this is just the finger of God, made with just the finger of God. And he sees that it is from our perspective endless. It is eternal, certainly in relationship to us. It is so vast. So David, who was the master of words, wrote, when I look at Shemayim, I look at the heavens, I think, Ma enosh ki tizkerenu. I think, what is man that you should pay mind to him? Uven adam ki tifkedenu. And who is a person that you should care about their welfare? Why do you even bother with us? We are just a speck. And then David HaMelech answers, and he says, Vatachasrehu me'at me'elukim. Want to know why God is concerned with us and why he commits us to his care? It is because we are just a touch below the godly. And that is the majestic level of the human being, that the human being is capable of pondering eternity. At times, of course, the pain of pondering death. But the human being is also capable of memory, where he can reconstruct things that once were and are no longer here. And human beings are capable of seeing a world different than it is now, constructing in our minds, not as things are, but how they should be, how they could be. Every time an architect puts pencil to paper, what is she doing? What is he doing? They are taking something which is not here, exists only in their mind, and then they set it to paper so that eventually it will become that building or whatever it is that they're constructing. So human beings are fundamentally different. Now, a little bit earlier in this parak, Chet of Tehillim, David HaMelech says something that we use very often. He uses a phrase that's become a part of our own English repertoire. And that is in Hebrew, he says, Mipi olalim v'yonkim yisad ta'oz. In the mouths of babes, you have established strength. Mipi olalim v'yonkim yisad ta'oz. Namely, when we say the mouths of babes, that's the English interpretation, but it really means olalim are those children that are just beginning to walk, and they're just beginning to put words together. Words which indicate the difference between human beings and all other creations of Hashem. Now, Rabbeinu Ibn Ezra says, it is at that moment when a child begins to formulate words and put little sentences together, when that occurs, he says that is the time when the neshama itself begins to grow within the person. And of course, the neshama is clearly what separates us from all other creations of Hashem on this earth. And so speech is so powerful. The Malbim tells us on this particular parak, the Malbim says that, he says, how do you categorize man? David is really asking, what's the category of man? Are human beings higher creations who are capable of intellect, capable of higher thinking, and therefore capable of doing things other creations cannot? But essentially, we are earthbound. Or, says the Malbim, David is asking, maybe we are higher beings. Maybe we are essentially spiritual beings. And if we're spiritual beings that have hands, feet, hands to grasp things with, feet to walk with, a brain to be able to function within the world, but that is not our essence. That is, those are traits, but that's not our essence. Our essence is, says the Malbim, we are not a chai medaber. We are not a living being that is capable of speech. He says we are a medaber chai. Our essence is that we speak. Our essence is that we are capable of formulating thoughts, of comprehending good from bad, of making ethical choices versus only selfish or pragmatic choices. That's what speech means, not just the ability to formulate sounds into words alone. Of course, that's important. But remember, a person who, God forbid, is mute and has lost that ability does not mean that they've stopped being a human. They are able to contemplate, especially if they're able to contemplate all of those things. That's what ultimately makes us human. Now, I want to conclude with a very timely story today. Some of you are maybe aware that today the Supreme Court heard arguments concerning a young lady, she was 14 at the time, who tried out in public school. She tried out for the cheerleading team and did not make it. And she tried out for perhaps a soccer team, didn't make it. That in itself is sad. I must say that, but we all have to learn to live with disappointment, but none of us likes to see our children disappointed or hurt. Hopefully they can learn from that and they can grow, but still it's painful. So what does she do? She gets on social media and unleashes a stream of vulgarities, the most awful vulgarities that one could say about the school, about the cheerleading team, about the soccer team, or whatever else it was that she tried out for and didn't make. Power of speech. Sadly, this young girl has a Jewish last name. I'm not even going to mention what it is. It could be that she's not, but And I thought to myself today, this is the Parsha that we're in. This is the Parsha of the nobility of speech. And what happens when we violate that nobility and that sanctity. I don't even blame her. I don't know how she was brought up, but the reality is I do know how she was brought up. She was brought up in a world, social media, where people can say anything in any way that they want, and that speech for them holds absolutely no sanctity, absolutely no sanctity. And I'm going to conclude completely with the story of the first time I was in Eretz Israel. I decided to go to Masada. That's a story in and of itself. I tried. By the way, the ability to speak does not mean you're always make the bright decisions. I decided to go to climb Masada at about 11 o'clock in the morning in the middle of July. Not a bright movement. And I get to the top after a very trying trip up. I was about 30 at the time. And I chose not to use the cable car. I chose to go up to the, I'm a He-Man. So I got to the top and huffing and puffing. And who's up there? The American Maccabiah team. They were there for the Maccabiah games. They didn't take the climbing route. They went on the cable car. All right. Now, in that sense, clearly smarter than I. We both looked out and we saw the same magnificent view of the desert, of the Dead Sea, of the profound earth tones, multiple earth tones. It's just takes your breath away. And I'm thinking to myself, Ma'rabu ma'asecha Hashem, how great are your creations, Hashem. All they could do. They also, by the way, they weren't angry. They also were amazed and astonished, but all they could do was utter vulgarities. Oh, this, oh, that. And each one was a four-letter word. So let us each, of course, we know the study now, we know the story now of the Megadef. We know the story of what happened to him. But perhaps more important for us, it is a springboard for us to really treasure this great gift that God has given us, the gift of speech, the gift to be able to transform thoughts into words and communications. And those communications, as David said, Marabu Ma'asech Hashem, how great are all of your creations, Hashem. I want to wish everybody this coming Friday, of course, is Lag BaOmer. Wish you a joyful Lag BaOmer, and we'll see you, I hope, next week. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thank you.
Terrific as always, Mike.
My pleasure. Yeah,
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks. You have a good week.
You too.